Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming and welcome to the first Club Treasury Symposium. My name is Rohan Roger and I'm your undergraduate Student Council Treasurer. With me today are Emily Capuzzo and Andres. Emily is the Grants Committee Chair and she's also directing the ad hoc committee on financial reform. Andres is the chair of the Finance Committee. We're gathered here today to talk about what happened basically last year when clubs had to get their budgets slashed. We've done some projections and those projections kind of scare us because the way things work right now, if we keep going in the same pattern, we might have another budget crisis at the end of this year. That's what we're trying to mitigate and that's what we're going to brainstorm today. So without further ado, Andres will start us off by talking about the influx of clubs and events.
Okay. Okay, so thanks a lot for the introduction. Let me actually start with that one. Thanks a lot all for coming. I'm looking forward to work all with you. What we wanted to show you a bit is, like, as Ron explained, how did we came in this situation? And the way we looked at this, in 2007, there were 70 clubs on campus. And the reality is you all got much more active, which is a great thing. In 2013, we already had 88 clubs. For next year, we project almost 120 clubs. That means the amount of clubs is steadily increasing, while the money we have for these clubs stays the same. And it's not only that there are more clubs, you're also all doing much, much more events. So in the fall 14, that's not that long ago, you had 650 events, all clubs together. We're looking how many events have you clubs done until now. It's already over 800. And yeah. Oh, is that okay? It's this one. Yeah, here's just like now. Here you see a bit like which is just the situation we are facing with more and more clubs coming to us and more clubs we have to distribute. Okay.
Andres?
Yeah.
Can you clarify, that is the number of clubs that have requested budgets, correct? Not necessarily the total number of SLP recognized clubs.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so for the grants committee, as you guys know, that we are a separate of the budget. So you come in and you submit a grant, and then it's presented to council. So for this year, I always like to compare it last year, what happened last year. So this year we actually have a little more money, and compared to last year, as you see, Q2 was 15,687 that ended at the end of the first semester. And right now, for this year, we're at 8,559. So obviously, it's a huge, huge jump of using a lot more money, obviously, because of the budget cuts, that more clubs are coming. So we just like to make you aware that, you know, grant is working very hard, and that we see that's hard, and you can always come to us, and that, again, everything that's affected with budgets comes into grants and PCFs.
Okay, so this is a little bit from Treasury training, but I just wanted to go over this quickly with you because it's going to be very relevant to our talks in the future. So the SAF, as we all know as a student activities fee, is budgeted at 2,000 students every year, multiplied by 350, which is the amount each student pays, goes out to 700,000. This is the initially budgeted amount which we use. The reason we do this is because we have no idea of knowing how many students are actually going to enroll, and we use a very safe number, which is 2,000, because we've historically always had 1 or 2,000 kids in the undergraduate program. Out of this entire chunk, only around 35%-ish of the SCF is available to clubs, because the rest goes into constitutionally allocated things. As you can see here, 52% is everything that's constitutionally allocated, 38% goes to clubs, and the 10% are others. Others include newspaper readership and stuff like that. I'd like to talk a little bit more about constitutionally funded things, because that's what the bulk of the SCF goes to. So the campus programming board, which comprises a lot of the things that you see, like spree day, major events, student activities board, and stuff like that, comes under the campus programming board. Grants committee gets money constitutionally also. It gets $76,000. The SSF, which is the student sustainability funds, gets $20,000. And media, which comprises of ROCU and Scarlet, gets $21,520. So that's a breakup of the student activities fee. Now, Andreas is going to talk about how the SCF has devalued over the past few years.
Okay, we are sorry to kind of bombard you with all the kind of data, but we really want you to understand why we are right now in the situation we are to then develop with you together solutions to it. The last time the student activity fee was raised was in 2007. It was back then raised to $350. The thing is, $350 in 2007, because of inflation, are right now only worth about $300. So the thing is, the actual money, the effective money clubs have per person is less than it ever was. And with every year and more inflation, it decreases more and more. And that also explains for us why you as clubs are requesting more money, because the actual costs you have for your things are increasing. We're going to later talk with you about the implications about that and possible solutions from your side, but first kind of the briefing where we are. Yeah, that's now a bit another thing to the budgets. You're all familiar with the audit process. And we did a lot of investigations about the November audits and figured out that in the November audits, almost every club surpasses at least one rule. What am I talking about? The treasurers of you will know. A club has to spend money. It's forbidden to not spend any money at all. You also are not allowed to spend more than 25% on food, more than 40% on travel, or more than 100%, which really shouldn't happen more than 100. But the thing is, for the other rules, there's normally like something we would call a waiver. That would mean you say, for example, my club is all around making one big event where we all cook together. Of course, if you have like, for example, a club to cook together, your food expenses will be more than 25% or closer to 100%. And traditionally, we would ask you for a waiver explaining why that happened, and then decide if these reasons are legit or if we are penalizing you. The thing is, we figured out, the thing we see in the front, the dark red, is the amount of clubs who surpassed rules, especially only the zero, I haven't spent anything in November yet rule. And that's nowadays over half of the clubs. And that was the reason we thought we're making the audit process less work for you and keeping it as slim as possible. The thing we right now did, you might be wondering, why haven't I received an email about audit yet? You will get them by tonight with the update. The thing which happened is we collected from student accounts with help from Tim. We collected the data, how much you spent, and we're looking in the first place, have you maybe complied with all 4 rules? If that's the case, you don't have to take any work. Normally in November, we would send out questions asking you for your budgets, eventually waivers. Now it will happen in December. We will write you an email and be like, you complied with every rule, the process is finished for you. So like to take the work from you. What happens now? You surpass the rule. So like you spent more than 25% on food, or you haven't spent something yet. We looked why that happened in the last year, and we figured out that in November, it were very legit reasons. So the thing we're introducing this year is basically we're asking you afterwards a survey, which just is for us to learn, why did this happen? Why in November haven't you spent money? Or why have you spent more on food than you were supposed to? And as long as you reply to our questions, we guarantee you that there will be no budget cuts penalizing something like that, because we understand you're on very tight budgets and we don't want to make them even tighter. That means for the November audit, the actual only way like to fail the audit would be if you ignore our emails, don't send us the survey back, and after the 3rd email, we can't do anything either anymore. But so this new process is for November. The February audit, long ago, will be like the normal audit, but the November audit, basically almost the entire work is taken from you, and we hope that like this helps you.
All right, so now we're gonna open this up to a couple of questions. So feel free to raise your hand and yell out. So the first question is, go back.
That's my question.
Well, that is a question. Yeah, but like, how are you handling budget? Okay, but yeah. So, how are you handling your club budgets because of the cut this year? Someone throw out an answer. How you guys doing? No, you sure, Aslan?
Yeah.
No, all right.
Well, my name is Greg. I'm president of the Clark University Film Society. So generally, when we do co-sponsorships with clubs, we would cover the entire fee for getting the rights to the movies because they are expensive. However, because of budget cuts and popularity in November, we're partially going to have to make it so that other clubs will have to pay half of it because we just don't have in our budget to go out through the rest of the year doing co-sponsorships and our own movies.
Okay. So are clubs willing to spend money to pay half, or are they more like taken back a little bit?
We haven't done it yet because we just decided it this month because we were doing not just in November, and so many clubs like Feminists United wanted to be part of it. That the problem is only surfaced this month.
Right.
But we've also we're not doing a screening next week or as we originally planned to try to save money.
Okay.
I don't think we're doing a December screening to try to save money.
Okay.
So we're kind of trying to cut back on how many movies we actually screen.
Right. Makes sense. So do you think going into next semester that starting doing half and half, do you think that's gonna allow you to have more movie screenings until the end of the year?
We're hoping that will be the case. We're also going to try to do some different purchasing with rights to try to make it cheaper. But in the end, it's getting very close.
Right. Right. Yeah. When you say different purchasings of rights, does that mean you have more movies that are less well known, or?
It has to do with the company, and every single movie has a different actual price for rights. So I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah. We'll talk later. Yeah. But thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have something they want to say?
So with money a little bit more strapped, the first thing we have to do is to get better at planning. So, RC Republicans, some people like it, some don't. So the first general meeting that we had was probably the longest meeting possible. But during that was a discussion of ideas. For example, one of our things is conversation cafes. And so for example, we're like, okay, we should have 7 per semester. So that is strategic, is then I could be like, okay, that's how much we're going to be doing per semester. Then I can figure out how much money for pizza I could decide range of that.
Right.
So it was from day one, we had to be clear in our communication, what are we going to do? Some clubs don't have the same way, some are we need people, some don't have full keyboard, blah, blah, blah.
Do you think it's allowed you to still have those events successfully, even though it's a little, maybe less pizza and stuff like that?
I would say that I'm still able to do
Okay, yeah. Do you think that, do you think that's the main factor to having pizza and stuff like that, food as an incentive for people to come, or do you think the turnout is still the same? People want to talk about, those topics?
Yeah, it's, I feel like we picked something that you could do without it being a very expensive thing.
Right.
I think we got we've been doing that for a while, but we're trying to be creative, trying to reduce how much money we spend. People like expensive food, pizza, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But you can't do that all the time.
Yeah. So as you were saying about expensive food, do you guys, I know everyone wants to have expensive foods at their club events, but are you guys okay with the fact that you kind of have to maybe settle for pizza instead?
People always order from Uncle Sam's. I don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in on this?
I think that kind of along the same lines with the food, it has kind of forced us a lot of the time to cook and to prepare things ourselves, probably far more than we would actually like. I know we had one, I think we all know here that food brings people to events, so it's kind of almost necessary for larger events. But I think it has been somewhat sort of difficult to manage both the cost of setting up events, you need to book rooms, tables, all that kind of thing, and then also, on top of that, having to pay for food if you want to have it catered or brought or anything. So I think it has forced us into more work for the same output.
Okay.
More so than less food.
Okay. What club are you again? Sorry.
Asian culture.
Okay, great. So when you say that, it's a little more work for the club officers and members, do you still feel like your event is still successful, that people still come?
Yeah, I think our events have been successful, but I have this sort of idea, as many people I'm sure here have, of improving events year to year. So I don't know if we've necessarily made any steps to make them better or bigger in any way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
do you think more money would allow you to cater and to have, you know, maybe better food or like
Yeah,
in
I
that
think it would
sense? Yeah.
definitely, like the load a little
Okay.
bit, especially with us having two person.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Mhm.
And our budget covers some of our lesson fees,
Mhm.
so we're still paying about 50% of that, and then all of our competition and all of the gas money we pay for ourselves.
Mhm.
So we don't have like any left over to even like think about buying food.
Yeah.
Because we're still concerned about like having kids who like can't pay to be on the team,
Mhm.
and like how are we gonna get places because like we have to pay for everything out of pocket.
Right, right. I'd love to talk to you afterwards about how much you actually pay and stuff, if you'd be open to that. But I was wondering, so do you think it's a big turnoff that people do have to pay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, how many members do you have? How many members do you have currently?
Yeah,
15.
15.
Okay. But thank you very much for the input. So basically, it is kind of the same question. You know, you're using your budget differently. Obviously, you're having more meetings and more meetings where you really have to set up the semester. So do you, since I am the grants chair and I've seen a lot of clubs come through, do you guys anticipate that you've had a higher volume of requesting grants this year? I definitely know I've seen a lot more, but or PCFs as well. Do you think that's a help having those funds there and being able to go there, you know, anytime you want, basically? Jeff?
Can you explain the PCF?
Oh yeah, so
One more time?
PCF is for on-campus events only, and it is per request $300 and any on-campus events.
And that's coming from that fund that you talked about where like it's automatically, the money from the activities fees automatically goes into the grant and PCF?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
who approves or denies the PCF?
So PCF is the Student Life Committee. Annie Ellie is the chair.
Okay.
On the last slide, you will also find here contact information.
Yeah, no, so then what is the difference between having these grants and the PCF? The PCF is always on campus.
Yeah, on campus, and plus it's a smaller fund too. Yeah, and grants individuals can come for like conferences and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be specifically clubs, but most of the PCFs are only like club events and stuff like
And you
that.
guys monitor if people go to grants and PCF?
Yes, we have. We've been really good about that this year. We've actually caught people going to both and stuff like that, which has been a good thing.
Awesome,
Thank you.
And how like grants voted upon.
Yeah, so and grants is voted upon in Student Council, and PCFs are voted on in Student Life, and is not presented in Council. So that's one of the biggest differences. But does anybody have any questions about, you know, using your budget differently and how helpful it is having grants or PCFs?
So I guess one thing is that we're currently creating our projections for the spring.
Mhm.
President of Clark University Player Society,
Mhm.
we're aiming to produce 2 shows.
Mhm.
And so we're trying to budget accordingly to use the most amount of our budget
Mhm.
for those 2 shows.
Right.
But funds, you know,
Yeah.
obviously have been cut. And so for our later show,
Mhm.
currently we don't anticipate needing to use the grant
Mhm.
for the PCF
Mhm.
funds, especially because there are clubs and organizations that like don't have any money that
Right. Right.
more than we do, and we assume that we'll be
Yeah.
using like all of our budget,
Yeah.
not beyond that. But if like March rolls
Mhm.
around and we hire a director that we really like, but
Mhm.
might use more
Yeah.
of our budget than we
Mhm.
are currently accounting for.
Right.
What are the chances of there being grant or PCF
Yeah.
money is still available? Because you don't want to apply for it prematurely.
Right,
and
right,
have
right.
Too much money, but also
Right. And
don't
then,
want to
yeah.
not apply.
can I take a little bit? So basically for grants, we try to allocate grants effectively so that it is able to to be able to use all the grants by the end grant money by the end of the year. And so that when you have that problem, definitely come to grants in the March. We do it quarterly, as you could tell, so we do have money in each quarter. What I suggest on those things, especially reimbursements, if you book the director already and know that you don't have enough money, I'd suggest coming to grants before that and then booking the director, because we don't do reimbursements. So that's something to be aware of. Or, you know, grants is always a mix and match. You know, use your budget fully for the director, and then come to grants for like the props or something like that. So things like that. And if you want to talk more about like what you foresee of an outline, we can talk afterwards, or email me and we can meet after. But yes, definitely there will still be money, hopefully, and that we do our best to allocate grants and PCF effectively. So you want to talk more about that, Rohan?
Another really good option that you could use is the mid-semester budgets, which is a terrible name because it's actually the mid-year budgets, but it just goes like that. So the mid-year budgets will be allocated sometime in February, and you could apply for a budget at that time. We are anticipating to have more money than usual in that. Last year we had 12,000 for mid-year budgets, and this year we should have around 30 to 40. So I would really recommend that you apply for that budget, and you'll have the information sent out, obviously, and that could be a good precursor. But grants usually rolls per expenditure, so if you need to make some spending right now, if you don't have money for it, please do not hesitate to come to grants. If it's something that you will spend in April or in March, then that is something you could possibly table until you hear back from the mid-year budget report, and at that time, grants will also have funds to give.
You want to say something? Yes.
Yeah, it's probably just like from the media budget.
Yeah.
So the media, you mentioned Scarlet and Rocky. There's more than that, though, right? Or is it just those two?
Right now it's just those two. There used to be another club in there, but they decided to change their name and therefore requested to be waived off on Steve because they wanted to do something different.
Okay. So for a club in the media budget, we went to media budget and we're not didn't get enough funds from that. So we went back and then requested more money. Is there a different way we can, like you said, there's an increase in that media budget that we can fulfill all of our needs from that, so that we don't have to take from the general club budgeting system? How would that work?
So since it's constitutionally allocated, and this year we are revamping the entire constitution allocated model, what I would recommend is that we can obviously discuss what actually we were planning to do is discuss with each club that's constitutionally funded, and check whether you need additional funding or less funding, either way, whichever it works. So if you need more in a general sense and you know that you need it every year, then we can do that constitutionally. If it's like that cost hits you every 2 years or every 3 years, then you can at any time apply through the normal collecting process for grants and stuff.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing, because like our funding was changed for whatever reason this year. It's completely decreased, so we applied for normal funding and got actions. But I don't want to take from that normal funding. There's enough in our constitution to allocate funds. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we can. Yeah,
We'll talk.
that makes sense.
Anybody else last questions on that? All right. So it's basically the same question. Does anybody have any last questions before we move on to the funding of semesters? Okay, go ahead, guys.
I just wanted to ask you this question, but in a different way. We know the general problems that are happening with clubs. You can't hold as many events as you wanted to. You don't have enough incentives to bring all excellent points. But I want to know if there are any other specific challenges that you're facing that we could probably look at or try to target and help you with. Yeah.
I know my club has had specific challenges with getting price quotes from tech and physical plant, things like that, and then subsequently getting those all the pricing for rooms for events that we've held actually deducted from our budget in Link. I know we held an event over a month ago and it still has yet to be updated in our budget. Just things like that are just sort of not really allowing us to get an accurate view of how much money we have left.
Okay, yeah. So Link is updated every 2 weeks, but I think Tim, you want to talk about that a bit?
To the point of physical plant charges specifically, they tend to roll those out in batches, every month or couple months. So the reason why it's not updated on your Link budget is because it hasn't hit your budget yet from a physical plant standpoint, and that's just a matter, I think, of volume in terms of how much of those requests they're handling, whether it's from clubs or park departments or whatever. It's something we can ask them to try to be a little bit more on top of. But and I know.
Yeah,
from
so
SLP
two things. One, on the event registration form, I tried to list out the costs of things as you requested them, so you would know, as you were telling me you needed tables, you would know the cost of those tables. So the basic costs are listed out on the ERG for you. So if you're not submitting the ERG, whoever is in your club should see that info. But you can always email us and ask, like, how much do you anticipate this costing? If it's not clear from submitting the event form. Also, we totally hear the concerns about not knowing how much tech will cost you. You're not paying for the equipment, you're paying for the person. So we've tried to create a sheet that sort of lists out by room what sort of setups can fit in that room and what that estimate of cost would be. And I am going to email that out to everyone actually today. I was waiting for the club town hall to roll that out. So that will be up today. So I hope that clears up a little. Unfortunately, on the back end, things don't look pretty, so that's why it takes so long for that to show up on link for you. But you can always email Caressa or Kirsten if you have questions about costs.
Awesome. Thanks so much for raising that point. Does anyone else have any other specific challenges to make? Yeah, sure.
So one of the questions I was wondering is that because of the club budgets, obviously you have to cut down on all that stuff, but is it really like holding you back from having a successful club? Do you guys think that you're still allowed to have enough events and feel that your club is being successful in that way? Maybe, you know, as you're saying that it may not be able to move forward, but in a way that you're still happy with the outcome. Thumbs up. Yes.
Specifically here.
Or no, everyone in general. All right, sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. Before we go on to talk about budgets, there's one very important question that we had, and so I didn't know what was happening there. That we had. So I need to know by like show of hands, when do you guys generally elect your board members? So show of hands probably won't work with this. Just answer, like, try to answer that question. When do you generally elect your e-board? Is it like towards the end of the spring, in the middle of the spring, like at the end of the fall? Obviously not, but when you start thinking about that?
It just depends. It depends on whether the person is shifting and wants to run the schoolwork, or something's come up and they have to leave, in which case that can happen at any point this semester. But usually it's at the end of the spring.
At the end of the spring.
Or the beginning of the fall.
Okay, does that happen with everyone? Okay, Jess?
Our club will elect at the end of the summer for the spring and fall semester.
Ah, okay, so you do a spring and fall semester thing.
Yeah.
That's cool. Luke?
Chess club is kind of idiosyncratic. You know, last year, our e-board was just sort of chosen by fiat of the outgoing presidents. We don't intend to do that again this year, especially since our president is not outgoing. But if there's a specific time that you think we should choose a new treasurer, I would love to comply with that.
That sounds good. Yeah.
They'll actually started their elections today, and then we'll go into office January 7th.
That's super cool. Yeah. So just follow-up question. So when club registration happens, and club registration on link requires you to enter an e-board there, what do you guys enter if your e-board hasn't been elected? Like you just pick members who you think would make good e-board members and then change that later on just to get through registration? Is that what happens, or do you do elections because of that happening, because you anticipate you need to register? Tim and Joanne can pretend that they can't hear you, so just don't worry about it. You don't want to answer.
Well, the reality, okay, here's the thing. The reality is in the fall semester, it'll be open like by the end of this month through the start of next semester. So if you're changing officers, you have the entire that entire time to do that. In the spring, I open it in like April, and it stays open until like October. So if you haven't yet selected a new e-board, we should probably talk at that point. Because are you even still in club? That was my question. So they have plenty of time to select e-board members and input them into the link. If that's the timeline you're asking about.
Yeah, okay. Jeff?
I think the reality is it doesn't have as much of an impact too, because typically your previous board will be ensuring that the club stays afloat, even if they're graduating, and like that it all gets done on time, and usually selected in advance. What we have found though is that it's making sure they have enough time to bring the link system from those who are familiar with it. So like getting approval for like multiple people on link would be kind of cool.
That's actually a really good idea and a really good point, because what happens, that what we've seen at least happening, is that e-boards, when they transition, they request budgets, they give formal plans and stuff. But what happens is when the new e-board comes in, they either don't follow the same ideas, or their pattern of activity is different, and those differences are so rapid and so diverse that that some clubs get very, very active and then have to come to grants and PCFs and request larger budgets, and some clubs that have already been active but are not so active have money lying around that does not get spent and then gets rolled over, which is why last year we had a $70,000 rollover into cumulative surplus, which is like a quarter of the entire amount that clubs get, which isn't the best thing, which is one of the reasons that we are doing this, because we know that there is money out there, we just need to allocate it efficiently.
Yeah. So as a general notion, why are we asking all that question? If you're telling us when you're doing the elections and so on, we can always try to accommodate as best as possible in our planning for your planning. So whenever you give us your feedback, it will actually like imply our policies. When are we sending out surveys? When will we ask for budget breakdowns? Things like this, and enable hopefully a better planning from both of our sides.
I just want to like also encourage you guys to keep your budget outline from last year, so that the new treasurer has it and that your new e-board has it, because I know a lot of times people just don't know what's happening, what happened last year.
Can I just have one thing before you guys move on? My perspective, based on your current timeline of club allocations, is really not conducive to officer transition. And I think you'd be surprised to know that a lot of club officers who are transitioning out of their roles do not bother applying for club budget. So there are a good amount of groups who are come to me and they're like, first of all, we don't even know how to run the club. Second of all, our outgoing officers didn't apply for a budget. So now we don't know what to do. So there is a large group of clubs that are sort of in that predicament where they're left like high and dry because the outgoing e-board didn't spend the time to prepare them and set them up. So I think that would definitely be a concern you might want to be thinking about.
And if you're one of the clubs who face that struggles, please email us. For example, a lot of people were like, I don't really know how to use Link and stuff like this. And Rohan then touched all this in treasury training to make sure if you didn't knew that you get the resources that you can do your work. So if you had any kind of like that transition or other kind of trouble, we won't know until you tell us. So yeah.
Joanne brought about a very, very good point. In your minds, like this is supposed to be discussion and less of this presentation. That's why it's important. Do you have any suggestions, or have you thought about this problem before? Because each club at some point or the other must have faced it. So how did you tackle that situation for the future, and what kind of remedies do you use as in your own club to make sure this doesn't happen?
So I'm part of the Pre-Law Society, which is how I'm speaking to you right now. And so we rely really heavily on our advisor. Actually, he's been here for so long and has worked really closely with the Pre-Law Society. So I know that we might be in kind of a particular situation because we are an academic club, but he's a really good source of institutional knowledge and typically has everything that we need to know, regardless of the concept that I was working.
Awesome. I saw a hand back there. Yeah.
I know that this happened with our club, in which the previous treasurer dropped the ball and the budget submissions were submitted for both semesters. And so then when I came in halfway through the semester, mid-semester budget were over. And so I know that student council really, really didn't like us, because what we did was we requested from the PCF grant. And so I think that the way to fix it is if there's a standing club that doesn't submit a budget for one semester, to directly contact the entire e-board rather than the treasurer. Because if the treasurer didn't submit it, it's probably because they dropped the ball somehow or another, and maybe the rest of the e-board doesn't know that. And so if the entire e-board is contacted, it's like, you guys don't have a budget, you better submit this budget for this upcoming semester, then I think that the e-board would then hop on the train and be like, all right, if this person isn't doing it, then we have to do it.
Maybe just a bit of background. The last finance year started with that. So like what was done is that email were sent out and be like, if you want to have actually a budget, you need now really to apply, which is kind of the reason why we also see the spark. So also like that's the reason so much more clubs applied for budgets, and why then the individual budgets were also much smaller, because like we try to encourage new clubs to apply and old ones not to forget. A bit from the background always, what just one needs to keep, like we will definitely take this implication and try to make implications to contact more people. The thing is, as we often oversee we oversee over 120 clubs. So we see always our data, but if nobody contacts us, it's hard for us to know, because like we are on campus, but we are not on all 120 clubs active. So yeah.
Awesome. Great. So now we're going to get into our more, if it wasn't enough, discussion period of the symposium, where we'll be talking about remedying the issues that we are facing and making sure that there isn't another budget slash at the end of this year. First, we talk about a very basic solution. We currently budget at 2,000 students, as we went over at the beginning of the slide. What if we started budgeting at a larger number? What if we started budgeting at 2,100? Now, that would mean two things. One, it would mean that entities, constitutionally funded entities, and all of those would get a little more money because those are percentage based. Clubs would have really go down, because remember, the media budget is comprised of all the money that is in excess of 700,000. Do you think that is something we should do, or do you think that's something we should not do, and why? Just, it doesn't matter, like whatever idea you have, just throw it out.
Or do you need some kind of explanation, maybe? Okay. Yeah, the thing is, there's the $350 fee, and when we start to plan it in the previous year, we don't know yet how many people are actually going to enroll. So the guideline we developed is we just take 2,000, and that was a safety number. About in every year we had, thank you, we had 2,000 students, so we just calculate with 700,000. The reality is, in all the last couple of years, there were actually more than 2,000 students, so more students paid us the activity fee, but the budgets were already given out. So what do we do, like with this kind of additional money we have? We give it out. You can, if you apply for a mid-semester budget, the money from that is coming from like the students over 2,000 who enrolled at the university. What Rohan now is mentioning, yeah, perfect. Just really, yeah. So what we are thinking of right now, this additionally money which you can apply not until the mid-year is available only to clubs. We have the option to not calculate with 2,000, but for example with 2,100 students. Yeah, if we do that, the money we can distribute to you at the beginning of the year, so like your normal budgets, will be larger. However, it means you won't be any more able, or like much less able, to apply at the mid-year for this mid-semester budget, how we call it. Now the question is, where lies the difference? The difference is that if we increase it from 2,000 to 2,100, this additional money from the additional people who enroll will be split, also part of it, to the constitutionally funded clubs. Right now, it's just given to the non-constitutional funded clubs. So we are right now discussing which of the two ways we want to go, but we thought like it's going to touch you, so we want to know like your opinion on the two approaches. Yeah.
Just a quick question: how many people take advantage of the mid-semester budget, and how much of that money is actually used and allocated?
Oh, wow.
as in like last year, the amount of money that people applied for the mid-semester budget was twice what the mid-semester budget actually was. So a lot of people do try and take advantage of this, but we think that the reason why was because of the big budget slash in the beginning of the year. People tried to make this up by then applying for the mid-semester budget, so it is taken advantage of quite.
Yeah. So we give out the entire mid-year budget. It's like in general the application what we actually also for normal budgets last year, like we had 190% more money being requested than there actually was in the first place, and that's also I think kind of the reason. But yeah,
I think it makes sense to keep it the way it is personally, just because if a budget is being allocated and the club is counting on that specific amount, and then they realize that they need more, then they can apply for more. Versus if they're allocated the money and they're like, okay, we're good with this for the entire year, then they can settle with that. Versus what we don't want is for the club to be allocated, say, $2,000 and only spend $1,500 and have the $500 extra in May. So if you're, you know.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. So what you're saying is you would like, what I'm hearing is you would like more freedom and more flexibility to request for more money in the middle of the year, so that you could tailor your own club's activities according to that, and to make sure that all the clubs could have another pool of money to go into. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that actually is a very good segue into the budget allocation conversation that we want to have. But I just want to take a few more points before we talk about that. Yeah.
When I last year, I was treasurer for Clark University Player Society, and the president forgot to fill out the form, so we didn't have a budget. And I was glad that there was the mid-semester budget allocation for all of those clubs that didn't have a budget at all. And so I think you should keep it at 2,000, because there are always going to be people who forget to fill out the form. So there's going to be a lot of clubs on campus that really want to be active but can't because of like the past e-board and need the mid-semester budget. Like they don't have anything. And so I think that's, if all the budget is allocated at the end of the year, then those clubs kind of get screwed over a little bit more.
Yes.
But if by saying an increase to that 2,000, like you're not saying you're going to get rid of the mid-semester budget, you said it would be smaller, correct? So there's still an opportunity to get those close funds in need. And I also don't think you want to create too big of a safety net that would like deter people from taking that spring like deadline for budget like very seriously. You know, that way everyone gets what they need at the beginning of the year, and then there's less pressure on grants as well to like figure it out or like to be requesting it all the time. People have active funds when they start their semester at the beginning of the year.
Okay, that's a good point. Luke?
I think that mid-year budgets have been extremely useful for a lot of organizations. I also think that it's very reasonable to give the constitutionally funded organizations an amount based on a more accurate estimate of what our SAF is actually going to be. You know, I know the class of 2018 is unusually small, and we still had over 2,200 that fall. So I guess what I would suggest, and this may be more of an undertaking than I'm foreseeing, but maybe alter how we prepare mid-semester budgets. You know, increase it to 2,100, but then draw off a fixed 10% or something of the club allocations and reserve them for the mid-year budget.
That's such a good point, and I think this is the best, since our conversation is moving that way, let's just segue into this. So one of the solutions that we've compounded is that basically exactly what you just articulated. What we would do is that instead of having an annual budget, there are two ways this can go. Instead of having an annual budget thing where you get your entire club budget in the beginning of the year, and there's only a very small net in the middle of the year for mid-year budgets, we were thinking about reducing the amount of money we give out in the fall and allowing you to apply for a bigger budget in the spring. Do you think that is a good idea? In the sense of, it would increase the workload in the sense that you would have to request for budgets twice, but that you would have more money in the spring to request money from. What are your opinions on that?
I just have a question of clarification. So are you suggesting like, you go to a 2 allocation process, like you apply for a fall budget and then you apply for a spring budget? Or like you apply for one budget hoping you get to the whole year and then you can apply for more? What are you suggesting?
Actually, both of the things are up on the table. So like, those are 2 options that we both could look into. So which one of those do you prefer and why? Yeah, you had your hand.
I think that 2 budgets is terrible.
Okay.
It's a horrible idea because there's no guarantee that you're gonna be able to receive the amount that you're trying to allocate for the next semester. And so if you are spending in the fall and then you are planning to spend even more in the spring, because like for example, in CFC, we have Earth Week in the spring, and we spend a lot more money in the spring than we do in the fall. And most budget allocations are based off of different events that you have during the year. And exactly. And so if you're basing it off of that, then the budget will be allocated not be comparable to the different semesters. And then so the way you're allocating it, then there's no guarantee that you can receive the money versus if you're receiving it for the entire year, you can try to budget so you can make both semesters work, even if you don't receive the mid-semester money.
I agree. It makes it a little more difficult and very much more uncertain when you're trying to plan for the entire year. I think especially when you're trying to encourage clubs to plan like a full year in advance, like it's helpful for them to know their budget actually, rather than having like error of uncertainty. I think also with the decreases of budgets that we've already experienced, the only thing that it would do by decreasing them for the fall is make people upset, which is definitely not something.
Yeah, those are actually very good things to know, because when we've done focus groups and stuff, we've had different ideas come, so it's very good for us to have all perspectives. Does anyone else have anything to add? Before that, I'll just go a little bit on your point. I recognize that it's a very scary model, and like we also recognize that would be one of the issues, because obviously it would create a lot of uncertainty. But the way that system would work, if it were implemented, which if people don't want it, we won't implement it. But like, if that system were implemented, what we would do is that we would not look at the events and the activity that you had in say the fall for the spring allocations, and we would also give you money that you would anticipate for the spring in the fall. So like, it wouldn't mean that we give you money only for the fall in the fall. We'll also give you money for the spring at the beginning of your year.
Yeah, maybe a bit the background idea. We saw that a lot of clubs, was our impression, plan more on the short term, and it's very hard, especially with changing e-boards, to plan for 8 months. So what we're suggesting is not, or just like what we're putting in a room, it's not even a suggestion, it's one of the ideas. That it's not that like we just split your budget and you get 2 times the same amount, but that you're more like, we have more events in the spring or more events in the fall. Our main reason also to do it, we know through the mid-year budget, we have more money available for the second semester, but we have certain clubs who have huge events at the end of the year, but the money is already kind of reserved in the first semester. So the idea to split it up was that like, you're telling us what you're like more certainly planning for the next half year. It doesn't mean that afterwards it's discouraged, and that then like, for example, if you're like, I just have an event in the first year, not in the first semester and not in the second, we can give you a larger budget in the first semester than otherwise we would be able. But if you have one in the second semester, more your large events, in the first semester you get a smaller one, so that the clubs who actually need in the first semester funding can get them. But like, just like to clarify the model, but still if the consensus, like just some opinions. Yeah.
Yeah, I also agree that it's not a particularly good idea, especially since you guys seem to be framing the fact that people are not submitting their budgets as a relatively major issue. So I don't think that would compound the problem. I don't think that would resolve it in any manner. Secondly, I think that splitting up the budget and even sort of planning events in advance, I think that a lot of us are kind of like flying by the seat of our pants in terms of planning events and doing things that we want. And I think that sort of limits our flexibility in terms of creating new events, as opposed to just replicating exactly what we did last year and just like, you know, keeping the same flow and keeping the same budget for the same events and everything like that. And I still have kind of a question about this mid-year budget. Do you guys sort of keep a track of the money that is allocated in mid-year. That is to say, you guys sort of have stated that people not using their budgets was a problem, or not using their budgets constructively. So do you guys know if this mid-semester money that is handed out is actually all used or given to clubs that have their budgets depleted by the end?
We know from every club exactly how much is spent at the end, how much is left. And also, if a club comes in a second time, it's something we'll mention. So, like, we have the data available. But I think you or Jax, you want to say something?
I think it's funny that you're saying that because clubs don't know. Like Chris in Ireland doesn't update our link. Like nothing's ever accurate. So I think it's great that clubs know. I do think that the pro to increasing the 2,100 overall is that you're still leaving like $100 or whatever else increase in the student activities for those mid-semester budgets. But like the constitutionally funded is not just the clubs, but it's also events like the major event committee, which I know was very tight for funds this year, and gala and spree day and events that like go towards all of our community. So I definitely see the pros in increasing that. And it's easy to say that like everyone goes to all the club events, but you know with those key events, there are things that the whole our community will utilize, which is kind of nice because I know the past gala has come to other clubs for donations and everything like that. So by increasing their budget at the start, you kind of bypass other clubs to give each other money.
Okay, thanks a lot.
These are really very, very good points. Does anyone else who hasn't answered yet have any points to bring up or any take on these? Yeah.
Yeah, you brought it up because of the community surplus. I've also heard of it as the community surplus.
Yeah.
And I was wondering where does that fit? Because I've been hearing a lot about this random surplus of money, and I was also wondering where it is on the budget. If it's taken off the top or if it's taken off the bottom, it really is a surplus. Because I've heard from people that it's an amount that's taken off the top, and I've also heard that it is truly a surplus where it's a fund where all the money goes that isn't spent. But I also know that Tim was able to get money out of that the end of my junior year to put new chairs and the little outlets in the third floor of the UC. So I was wondering if there's a way of, instead of trying to tap into student club, but to make sure that the student clubs are effectively using their budgets, but also making sure that we're using the resources that we can use. So if there's constitutional clubs that we could cut on, we could be cutting on that, even though that's allocated in the budget. And if we have this surplus of money, because I think I heard it was like $9,000. So if we have $9,000 that we can just give away for chairs and stuff like that, why can't we allocate those to clubs? So we have better events.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. And that's actually a big issue that we are facing as a council and a student body. Because what happens is when clubs don't use their money at the end of the year, it does go into cumulative surplus. And that's what cumulative surplus is. It isn't anything tied into the SAF per se. It is all the money that is not spent in a certain fiscal year from the student activity fee. All of that money directly goes into cumulative surplus. Last year, that rollout was $70,000. To answer your question, we are able to spend money out of cumulative surplus with permission from the administration. That's how the system works currently. So if we need to make a capital expense, for example, if you wanted to build a fountain right here, if someone had an idea, you would be able to do that out of cumulative surplus because it comes under capital. But for things like programming, it's very strict. We need to ask them for permission, and we cannot. Till now, we have not been able to establish a framework with them for them to permit us to dip into cumulative surplus for club partners. So there is no connection between getting money back from cumulative surplus, which is in part why we're having this discussion right now, because we recognize that $70,000 and large amounts of money is going into that, but once it goes in, we can't take it out. So what we need to prevent is to make sure that the cumulative surplus doesn't keep growing larger, because it's a pool of money we can't access. It's there, but we can't access it, which is a big issue.
Also, to answer your other question about the SLP place, that was a grant. It was a cumulative surplus. Yeah.
That was from grants?
Yeah, that was from grants.
Yeah. For example, the EMS car is a good example of like the cumulative surplus, as it was then like a capital expenditure.
So like the grants come in, you go to the order on it, and that's how they do that.
For the chargers and right.
But the lounge was cumulative surplus. So like the furniture and all came out of cumulative surplus. Yes. That was $9,000. Yeah. Yeah, so that's all about. Does anyone have any questions? Because I know cumulative surplus has been a big topic of discussion, and unfortunately, the way the rules stand, we are not able to dip into it, which is why we need to like make sure that money doesn't keep going. Just
Is there any way to restructure it where money not spent can go to grants? Like, I don't know how any of that's approved, and this could be like a totally out of nowhere idea, but if some of that extra like surplus or whatever, is there any way to filter a certain percentage of that into grants? Because if any board needs money, I think that's it.
we've looked into that. The issue with that is that requires authorization from the board of trustees.
Okay, so what do
And
we
like,
get that then? Has anyone got passive like these robot clocks, or do we just hit this and assume that it can't happen?
we have spoken with the administration. They've asked us to they've asked council to come up with a few more projections and more suggestions and give that to them. So we're in the process of doing that. We are hoping to have all these reforms done by March so that next year no clubs gets, and so then we can control community surplus. I mean, the money that goes into community surplus for next year. But as of now, we don't have any concrete things, any concrete progress on that.
Okay, so define control community surplus. You mean like delegate that to grants or council's budget, or what's the plan then?
Well, our first priority is trying to make that accessible. So like, if we can make it accessible, then we can either put it into grants or club budgets or both, depending on how big it is. Because obviously, if it's like $1,000, it doesn't really matter. But if it's 70,000, it can go to both places. So
So what can clubs do to help you guys with that? Is there anything that can be done or that sisters can do to like help get some sort of access to this? It seems like
yeah, I'm really good. I'm really grateful for the offer and the offer. The thing is that we have initiated talks with the administration. We will need support when it comes to a vote because we have to be voted on by the student body. So yes, that is true. But until then, we have to again work with the administration to try to get that established. It's a big thing because in the past the administration has. So actually, never mind. In the past, the administration has kind of been against us dipping in the community surplus a lot. This year, we had a very good discussion with them, and they have opened up the conversation to allowing us to spend more than 15,000, establishing principles and stuff. So we are making progress on that end, and I'm hopeful by the way things are looking, we should be able to resolve this by March.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of with that, if there's a way, I mean, just even minorly, like to form a petition or some kind of minor coalition that we can say, you know, this is what we want, this is what the clubs want. Other than just, I mean, I know you guys are doing a lot of work for us essentially, but you know, showing that it's not just, you know, that we are actually all invested in sort of getting things changed or something.
That's actually very good to know. Thanks. I mean, we will obviously convey this to them. We'll tell them that everyone at the Treasurer Symposium wanted this to happen, so that will help a lot. And like, if roadblocks, we will get in touch with clubs. But thank you so much for the support. It's really important for us.
Yeah, and we have one like suggestion how we can like get a cumulative surplus a bit smaller.
I mean, all right, fine. So the coast, we had a suggestion like to do more co-sponsorship events. So, you know, cut down costs because, you know, do we really want to have 3 bingo nights in one weekend to kind of combine people together so you spend less money and so that you can also have to also network with different clubs. I'm not just talking about, you know, a political club and that and this. It can be like diversibility with, you know, having topic with conversation cafe or something like that. So would you guys be open to that in a way? It does, but like more of a push.
Yeah. The background idea is that one club sees you have a lot of money left at the end of the year. A very easy way to give it to those clubs run out is just co-sponsor an event with them and cover most of the costs. And that's like one of the solutions we can do without approval from administration, board of trustees, and everyone. It's like where you as clubs could help us if you start with more co-sponsorship so that like it doesn't happen more that like clubs don't spend their money. Yeah.
Is there currently a system of like, if your club has applied for budgets and for 3 years now you guys haven't spent 90% of your budget, like this is all hypothetical, like is there any repercussions for that? Oh,
yeah, every year when you like apply for your budget, they look at how much you spent last year.
Actually, when you're submitting your data, we monitor your last 3 years, look how you performed, how much you spent, which rules you surpassed. Like we try to make this process as fair as possible.
think that there might be some people who maybe not open to the idea, but perhaps having it some way that we could see other people's budgets in a way, or perhaps that might make co-sponsorships easier. It might make sort of like approaching other clubs easier as a way to sort of engage sort of communication between the clubs and have more what's the word? Visibility.
Yeah. Did you honestly know that there was the possibility to financially co-sponsor with another club? Did most people know that? Yes. Okay.
Well, I think part of that comes from everyone showing up for things like the hall council meetings or the club council. What was it called? Town hall meetings. Like there were 3 clubs that showed up to that. So like it'd be cool if more people came to that, or like working on that officer page. I don't know if y'all have access to it, but there's a Facebook page for club officers. Like if we can encourage everyone from our club, do like friends in clubs to get on that, be like, hey, I want to do this event, like post it in the Facebook page. Like I don't, my club has a lot of money, so like we're always looking to like help fund other clubs. So like just being vocal about it would be kind of cool.
I think that's a really great suggestion, and like I think something you can then afterwards all bring back in your clubs. Be like, let's co-sponsor. To your question, like a list how much budget they have, how much they like currently spend. That's another thing, but how much they were allocated. There's the breakdown, which like is available if you look for it. There might always be changes to media budget, but like an orientation you have through that. It seems we will send that then out that like you have a better feeling for it and like this data better available.
Yeah, just finish it.
I just like, since we're on the note, I'm thinking about it. I learned the other day that clubs can do free advertisements for events in the Scarlet. So like that's kind of cool too. So just like knowing what's out there for like networking, working together, like if everyone just knows stuff like that, that would be cool, and I'm sure help advance everyone in the club. So little things that way.
Craft studio. It's a great place.
Related to that, I think that I personally do not know a lot of the tools and things that are available for clubs. Just maybe, making that easier to find, making all these tools and sort of various things that we can do just more, I don't even know how to say it. Everybody should know what we can do, right?
Yeah.
All clubs should know all the resources they have. We should all sort of know how to use Link, even though I personally have problems with Link because I think it's kind of useless, but I think we should all know what we have and what we can do.
That's a very good suggestion. Yeah, we will look into making some resources like that, Luke.
So here's a thought related to kind of both of those things. So you know how we were talking about like making that page of like this is all of the funding sources that clubs can potentially access? Maybe as an addendum to that, have clubs near the end of the year be able to say, we have extra money, co-sponsor something random with us. Like I can tell you right now, chess club's gonna have some left over at the end of the year because things changed from our planning last spring. So like we can co-sponsor just random things. Like
you can also do like donations to help too. Like if the cups does like an event, you want to like donate for an ad or program. Like we did that last year with one of the dance teams. I don't remember what it was. So like different things like that too. Like some gift bags or like stickers with like the chess team like hand out to everyone too. That way you're advertising for your club and you're using the reward funds for your club, but then you're also helping out other people. So like thinking about the different ways to spend money other than like throwing a party, but like see if like you can donate to a club that has a program for like an ad, or see if you can get like stickers to hand out to everyone. Like different like things that like put your money to good use for your club, but then also help others.
Maybe some kind of forum where we could more freely communicate and either request co-sponsors.
Yeah.
Have like a concentrated place where you can discuss that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. This is such a good discussion. Great. So just piggybacking off something that you guys said before, since we're doing financial reforms this year, I want to like touch on those topics just a tad a little bit more. Do you guys feel that having a resource like grants, like being able to go to grants, is a good thing? Would you like us to like consider and like do more focus groups to see if you would like to increase the pool of money in grants? Do you think that is a viable? Jess?
Yeah, I think grants is really important because it helps out the clubs a lot. Like clubs that don't plan according to the beginning of the year or don't submit their thing. But I think the cool thing about grants is it also helps individual students. And I've been in grants a number of times where they've like given money to like kids going to conferences or like other individual needs in the club community too. And I think that that's super important. Like clubs that
Yeah. Okay, so so the general consensus is that we like grants. We like having a lot of money to go to grants for contingencies. That's perfect. That is one of the things, yeah, that we were also considering. Grants was, when it was a little bit of history, when grants was first created, it was supposed to be created only for individuals who needed money or for clubs that ran out of their budgets and needed to come. But now, obviously, with the budget cuts and stuff we've opened it completely to basically anyone who applies for a request. And yeah, keeping up with the times, I think that would be a good idea for us to look at. That's awesome. Thanks, guys. Does anyone have any other suggestions or anything? Because the next discussion that we have is about the SAF literally, which Andreas and Emily will lead. So before that, if you had anything else to add on the budget allocation model, the way money is given out, or grants or cumulative surplus, or anything, this now's the time to ask. Corey, did you have a?
This isn't tied to that, but if nobody has any questions, I was just wondering if I could show something, since we have people here, if I could just show something that might help people out.
Totally.
Like the Student Council's website.
Yeah. Do you need to access the website? Do you need us to pull up the website for you?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's CU Student Council Club. Okay, so this is our Student Council website. It's pretty bad, to be honest. Right now we're working on redesigning it. So the parts that we worked on recently are your representatives. So we put it in now. Previously it just had some of the same code. A lot of it's outdated. Some of it's still not perfect yet. Like we don't know, for example, who up there, like one person, what they're representing. So we're still working on filling in some of that. But we now have it, so you can just click on these links here and go email various representatives. We also have it, and we're working on updating these a bit in, say, communications committee. You can click on that. You can now see when certain committees, depending on your various needs, say like grants committee, for example, we're working on theirs. When they have their meetings and where, who their chair is, and contact them, say like other members of the committee. This course is one that we're still working on. Naturally, later we could talk about.
Yeah.
And then another part that we're working on, actually just adding here. Another thing that we're working on is the contact page. That one is actually almost done. So here we have this, and then if you just click there, contact us. We've actually worked to fix this up a bit. Just trying to make things more usable, improve our copy in a way, I suppose you could say. And we want to make this something that is easy for people to use, and so that it can be really a resource for people. So going forward, we're going to try to put something on here. I should just say several things on here to really help out clubs. Like we want to have information on here that explains, say, like how to use Link, how to apply for like a grant or like PCF, and goes and explains these things like really well. And just moving forward, we really would appreciate your input, because these are things that we're going to create for you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I actually really like this. Perhaps even tying in sort of like tutorials for various things, like even specific things like requesting purchase orders.
Yeah, we were actually I was actually working with them to start kind of a podcast series for SmartWare Plus, because I know the biggest issue that people have is requesting a PO, getting a proper reimbursement, and closing the PO. Like those kind of things are an issue. Like, to be honest, like I haven't been trained on SmartWare Plus yet. I just open POs and have no idea what to do after that. Just saying. Like SmartWare Plus is a little bit weird. Okay. But yeah. I also wanted to ask you another quick question. By show of hands, how many of you actually use Link? So you all use Link. And do you use Link to know what your budget is and to request events, or do you use it for any other purpose other than that? Yes.
We post our pictures to it in the photo gallery. We have it hooked to all of our social media. We keep it updated with primary contact. I really like Thank you. Cool. All the clubs are on it. I work a lot with computer restructuring this summer, so I feel like I have to advertise and like advocate for it. But it is a really good cool resource. It's also a good resource to see what clubs are similar to yours if you wanted to do this like dual event partnership thing. Like everyone's information should be on there. And you can customize it like a Facebook page and make the cover photo. It's super cool.
It's very sweet. Awesome. Great. I think okay. So that was the best answer possible.
Okay. So okay. Dario, now we're touching. We looked before at the SAF and like we're developing all the solutions together with you to try like to be more efficient, but there's a certain limit. Like if we will go forward in time and the SAF all the time stays at the same amount, it will be less and less you can actually purchase from it. So the thing is, first maybe how is the SAF determined? If the SAF wants to be changed, it's a vote by the students. After the students vote to it, we present it to the trustees who meet like 3 times a year. They vote on it and then it's decided if it's included. So if I'm now talking about eventually changing the SAF, it's nothing that's going to happen tomorrow. It's like a long-term goal. The thing we were thinking, and that's like, you're some of the students, some very active students, so we want to get like your impression. If we think 2007, it was last time raised to $350. Right now, that would be equivalent to a student activity fee of around $400, $50 more. How's your general ideas, pros and cons of raising the SAF by $50 and afterwards just like making the implication that every year it increases by 2%, which will be like $8, just like to account for inflation so that we don't run into this problem again. Yeah.
I mean, this is gonna get really political really quickly.
Go for it.
But tuition in general, it's increasing every year. So the incoming tuition we came in with, I'm a junior currently, freshman year is significantly more junior year, and it's gonna be even more my senior year. And then adding on top of that, $50 for the student activity fee, although in theory, and it being part of a club member, it makes sense, and I am aware of how much money is needed to run a club and how many clubs are on campus. I think that if we were to actually say we're gonna increase the activity fee, people would be pissed. Now, this gets political, because I think that if there were tuition freezes in which the incoming tuition you got when you were coming in as a freshman, like we're not saying that, like, I'm not saying that, you know, tuition should be frozen from what it is now for 20 years. What I'm saying is every incoming class has their tuition frozen. So for those 4 years of the year, you know, it's steady. Then it makes sense to have
exactly what we're doing.
Increase,
we are right now in a board to discuss exactly that with administration. All 3 here, Rohan did a lot of effort on that. We all 3 were in several meetings with administration and are discussing all that. Thing we're actually right now drafting a resolution to bring out to like push this a bit forward. So like just to bring it in, we're also working on the tuition board side a bit on the $50. Why? Like that's now my personal opinion. $50, it is an increase, but if we think it's 0.1% of our entire fees, it's like even if we would increase, even if we would pay 1% of our entire money, what we pay to the university on clubs, it would already be over 500. So like it's really a very small increase, but we get the point, the total costs are increasing, and that's also the reason why we are hesitant and want your feedback. But yeah.
I think that it needs to happen at some point. I think that I totally agree with everything you said, but I think it does need to happen. I think also we need to keep in mind that Clark is pretty awesome in the fact that all of our events are free, and it is because we have a very diverse like financial population of students. But if you go to it, like okay, so I'm part of CPG clubs. I do a lot like with other clubs and student affairs type stuff, and I've got a lot of conferences recently, like talk to other schools. If you go to like Holy Cross, like you pay $5 for every event that you go to. Like this major event that they had a very similar one, and they charged $20 a student. Like our students don't have the type of money to be paying for all of the events that you can go to. And I can say, like personally, I go to more than 50 events a year. Like, and it seems like a lot, but it really isn't with all the stuff that goes on at Clark's campus. So to be able to put an extra bucks, another like $1 for every event. Like when you're looking at it objectively, like it's not a lot compared to everything that goes on at Campus. And I think that I don't know if I think everyone would be down for the whole like raising every single year thing, but even if like every 10 years it went up $50 or whatever because of inflation or everything going on, I don't know. I think it's important, and I think that eventually
yeah.
Personally, I'm okay with 50% height, but I think that's a little more controversial. I think it would be more reasonable to just like propose a 2% a year in perpetua. Like that will keep up with inflation. It won't keep up. It'll be approximate to inflation. It'll be consistent and reliable. Whereas like continuously having a system of $50 hikes is like attempts to catch up lost ground. It's just like a less sustainable system. I feel good with $50 hike, but I think the 2% is just a better. It's more responsible setting up a system for the future.
The current idea, which is actually like really an idea, like it's as we discuss it right now, it's exactly the same for us. Like there's no direction or no bias taken yet. The idea is like to one time raise it $50 to then have adjusted for the inflation we haven't, and from then on just say it's constitutionally just inflation. Just like, but yes.
Yeah. Just a question about the student activities fee. Is there any way to opt out of it, or is it covered by financial aid?
The student activity fee, you can opt out. However, if you opt out, you need to sign that like you're not allowed to take part in any club activities, in any. So like you pretty much detach yourself from the entire Clark social life.
it's like
I mean, I know that I personally don't pay tuition just because my father teaches here, but I still have to pay the student activities fee. So I'm wondering, do people that receive financial aid still have to pay that amount? And people that may necessarily have extremely tight budgets, may not be able to pay any sort of increase.
Financial aid always looks at your type of attending this institution. So like they also consider your board, your room.
The SAF is not included in financial aid because that's recognized in supplementary costs. Students who cannot pay the SAF can't get waived from it. You can't serve as, the requirement is that you can't serve as a club officer or hold any ranking executive board position. So that's what the basics are. You're supposed to not attend events with obviously no one. Who's going to do that? So that's what the rule is. And there are actually a lot of students that do not pay the SAF, which is the reason why we don't get that much money out of mid-year budgets. Because in theory, like they're 100, I think, so, and which is we are all okay with that because we understand like if someone has that kind of financial situation, we cannot force them to pay, and we're happy to let that go. But the university does not pay for it financially because it's completely free.
So with that expose, that would be against raising it just because of the
yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is actually why it was voted down. It was introduced to council before the election, then it was voted down. We didn't vote to increase the SAF because of that reason.
Yeah, I think because eventually it's going to be raised. Everything is going to go up. So I think we need to pick a method that we should do it. If you want to raise it by 50 drastically, then you need to hold off on the 2% every year. So if you're not going to do the 50, just 50 jump to that's 400, you should do 2% every year, but you definitely need to pick one or the other. But I also feel like really clubs that get larger budgets needs to be looked at more, and maybe because they get larger budgets, they're seen as, oh, they can't do this because they have a larger budget. You're looking at that because you just said we lost $70,000 last year to the surplus fund. So right there, increasing it by $50, if you wouldn't have lost the 70,000, then you wouldn't have needed the $50 increase or 2% because that would have been covered because we already had that money. So I feel like pick one or the other, and then also look at the money that is being lost at the same time. But pick one or the other, or maybe not make it 50, maybe like $5 or $10 and do it 2%, but not that long at a time.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, sorry. That is looking at the amount that rolls over is a good point. I understand getting $50 plastic is going to be very hard. How about something like $10 every year or $5 every year? Does that sound better to people?
Than 2%. If we just say like $10, which is about 2%. So.
Yeah, I think it should be as a percentage.
As a percentage?
So say, for example, it's at $350 now, you get like say 2% of that. So then we're talking about like $10. So then after that, it's now 360. So you got 2% of 360. So it's gonna be even more, and then you keep adding. So it's not $10 every year. It's gonna.
But I agree with whatever you said, Jimmy, because it has been raised in the past couple of years to be like a one-time $50 increase and then your 2% or whatever. That seems like a very smart way to do it.
I have to disagree with that. I think we're getting by right now. And as we saw, there is definitely more room to improve efficiency wise. So I think if we just, start indexing to inflation now, we don't need to catch up to where we were before because we are getting by, and a sudden hike that people did not sign up for is really just not necessary.
Yeah. The reason we are exploring, we estimate for next year, because people started to contact judicial, that 20 additional clubs who hadn't had a budget before are going to ask for one. And the reason we are making this entire discussion, these people will come and my team and me will sit there, and now we have 20 more clubs. It's like over 2013. That's a 1/3 more clubs than we had 3 years ago, now applying for a budget. And so we have 1/3 more clubs. We still have exactly the same amount of money to distribute, because every change we're going to do, as I explained, even with trustees, is going to take some time. And that's in general, I think what this is about, trying to find ways there where we're almost satisfied. But I get your point.
Yeah, guys. So the situation is that we need to do something, because we understand raising the SF is a last resort for us. We don't want to do that, which is why we were looking into budget allocation models, increasing the number of money we give to grants and stuff like that, and the cumulative surplus thing. But at the end of the day, what it's going to come down to at the end of this fiscal year is 20 more clubs requesting budgets from the same pool of money. And even if you give them $200 each, that severely reduces the amount of money for everybody, for all the other clubs. And we just don't want to get into that situation again. So we need to do something about that. Yeah.
I know this has been sort of shot down before, but what about the idea of creation of money? Because I know we can't raise funds for ourselves. We're trying to look it for ourselves.
You can raise funds.
I mean, as far as I understand, we can't sell stuff for money that goes to
Yeah, some clubs can.
some clubs.
Most of them can, unless you're constitutionally funded, you can.
You can do it if you're constitutionally funded.
No, you can't.
SLP doesn't let you.
I've been told that you can't sell tickets to an event or something like that.
Oh yeah, because you can't sell tickets for that are funded. That's true. But other than that, you can raise money.
Yeah, you can do fundraisers
Yeah.
bake sales or raffle
I mean,
tickets.
as far as I understood,
all that's allowed.
any bake sales or fundraisers has to be, it can't go to you, but that's what I've been told. That it has to be for donations or for some other organization.
No, it should be able to.
No, you can take it. It's the way you take the money. So you need to collect it in a cash box, and then you need to take it.
Yeah,
and
you can do it.
Yeah. And then the accounts payable puts that into, so it doesn't directly come into your account, but then accounts payable adjusts it into your budget. That does happen.
Musical theater will sell raffle tickets to their event or flowers for their actors, and that money goes to buy their rights.
One thing where this might come from, where we're talking it's hard if somebody wants to make a donation just to your club, not to club. That's a complicated thing. For example, a business says, your club, it's awesome, I want to give them $2,000. Then it's by the system, the accounting system of club works, that is something very complicated that it just
But they
takes
can
to you.
donate things.
But
Sorry?
They have
then it's if it's not, but it's more pure money which is donated to you and less about you doing stuff where you gain money.
Yeah, this is a good point to introduce a new feature that's going to be added probably by the end of this year. It's called CashNet. It's kind of the same thing that we use to pay our fees, but so what's going to happen is that you will be able to take iPads out and use those to collect money from students as tickets, as bus fees. It's a portal that you can sell things on and stuff. So that might be, so because of that, I know that you can get money into your budget, and that money will directly go into your club budget. So they are rolling out a new feature soon. SLP is working on it. They will roll that out soon. But yeah, I mean, you can raise money for your own club. There's no, cap on that or restriction. Yeah.
I think what it is that you can raise money for your budget for a specific thing. Raise money for your budget. They told us we couldn't though.
Yeah,
If-
that's
if-
been told multiple times. Yeah, that's why I'm
Earlier
kind of confused right now.
I think we're going to clarify on that then, definitely.
I will have that clarified and put a post out. Don't worry about that. As far as the manual that I have like a very old treasurer manual, and like that's updated every year, and that allows it. So, I mean, if it's something that they've stopped doing, we'll definitely look into it. Thanks for letting us know. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, this is small kind of also going back to the 15%. Also, because now that I'm just thinking, also, you might want to think about when would be the cap. So, like, if you do increase by 50 or you are doing 2%, like, when would that 2% then stop? Would it stop at when it equals, it's no longer like, it's equal to the amount that it would be, or would it just keep going so then you can have it like years down the line and then it's still increasing now the students would be like $500 or whatever. So would it be like a cap on it or maybe that's because later on, so let's think about, but to think about like when would that stop if you are to put that in place, and also think about that just in case like you're gonna leave, somebody's gonna take over to just also keep that in mind.
Yeah,
maybe.
Time to recap. Yeah, that makes sense.
The reason why we said like the 2% is because it's kind of adjusting for inflation. So our idea is like, let's say back in 1900, $1 would have been enough because for $1 you could buy like 200 pizza equivalent. Right now that's not possible anymore, and that was the reason why we thought about like doing it as a long-term solution to just account for the inflation. That's the reason for the 2%. So it's not like to get higher quality. 2% is merely to keep like the same purchasing power we right now have.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying for like, when it does match and it's equal, you might want to think about it because if you just put on the race every by 2%, that means it was still going even past that point. So that's why you might want to also take that into consideration and put a cap and be like, oh, when it meets where it needs to meet or whatever, but does so further down the line for us to if this is that.
Corey?
I think to help clarify this, the 2% isn't to correct for inflation that's already happened. It's not to bring us back to where we were before. It's for inflation moving forward. Because inflation is going to keep going every single year. So it's just like if inflation is like 2% next year, then it goes up 2%. So we keep up with inflation. And then the year after that, it just keeps happening. So there wouldn't necessarily be a cap on it because the value of our currency is always going down. So this would just account for that.
Yeah, but I guess like what I'm trying to say is like you might want to think about a number where you just might want to say, we're going to stop it right now. Did you see how like it was a pause from like 2007? I think you said the last time it increased, and now it's maybe you might want to be like, okay, well, if this is the hit for like $550, maybe like stop it here for like time to go on, or you can keep going because part of that every year is going to be you were saying that tuition going to go up. It's like it can keep going too, but that's what I'm trying to say.
Like there's a 3%, like they do inflation plus improving.
Yeah, we keep that in mind.
So just to clarify, I think it's that the $50 in the initial $50 would be to make up for the amount that we lost since 2007. And so then it would be adjusted for inflation. So like it doesn't have to be 2% every year. It would just match the exact percentage that inflation is. So if the inflation is actually 4%, it'd be 4%, the inflation is 1%, but actually 1%. And that doesn't actually give you any more money. It keeps you at the exact amount of money that you are now. So if we did then say that at a certain year it stopped for like 8 years away, like in 2007 it stopped until now. So then that would just lead us to the same issue that we're having right now. That we stop and then inflation keeps on piling up and our purchasing power decreases, and then we're faced with the same crisis that we had last year when we had the recession with this. So just like my personal opinion is that I don't think we would be able to just like stop it at a certain year because inflation doesn't itself stop. Inflation keeps on going.
So it still would be a lot of money on top of whatever because we're all students, so it would be this money on top of whatever also somebody have to pay tuition. So it's also me also thinking about, that would be a lot, somebody having to write a check to the school and then having to write, $500 for a school activity. So I'm also looking at it, I'm looking at it from that perspective, I'm also looking at it from just the amount of money perspective, because that would be an added check. You see me, so I'm just trying to get both. And that's why I'm like, later on you'll figure these things out and have these long conversations.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we would, if we decide to do something like debts goes up every year, that doesn't make sense. Obviously, yeah. Because I mean, it was last year in 2007, and we've gone by pretty well over the last 8 years. Like, we haven't had need to raise it until last year, so we've been okay since then. So that's been cool. Actually, one more question for clubs. This isn't totally related to this. I just wanted to ask you guys, when you, how do I phrase this in a very good way? We all use Smart Buy Plus, right? And we all know Smart Buy Plus is a little complicated to use. How would you feel if that everyone knows the bookkeeper, right? Kirsten Ireland. How would you feel if Kirsten Ireland had a credit card that you could go up to SLP's suite to use anytime that she was in the office? So you could make online purchases rather than having to use Smart Buy Plus for a few things. The POs aren't an option.
Yeah, I think more options is obviously more helpful.
Okay, Jess?
Is that already a thing? Because I've been doing this for like 2 years.
No, it's a thing, but the issue right now is it isn't very accessible. There are lots of caps on it. We've had issues when we've sent clubs up and then they've come back and saying that we weren't permitted to do it. So we've had that kind of issue. I mean, I'm sure it must be easier for clubs like SAB and Rocky when constitutionally funded clubs that do a lot of events. But for general clubs, we do at many times get notices, get emails saying that we weren't allowed to use a credit card.
If it's available for one club, just be available for all.
Exactly. So that would help you guys.
I mean, I think my issue is just kind of the fragmentation in SLP where you have one person that can only do one thing and they're only there like 4 hours during the week.
Yeah, the problem is really
Yeah,
so if we did something to make her full time, would that be helpful?
Yeah, either she needs to be full time or there needs to be someone else
who can do theirs.
Okay, because this year actually we were leading a bookkeeper review committee, so we were looking into making it full year. But the issue is that money is going to come out of the student activity fee too, because the bookkeeper is funded by the student activity fee.
Someone just has to know if we make her full time, it means 10,000 additional. These are all options we are considering, but like there are risk management factors we need to consider with administration.
What were you asking about work study?
Why is her salary?
Because it was a position that was created by Student Council around 4 years ago to assist the everyone on the finances side. Because earlier it used to be the treasurer, the finance committee used to sign every purchase order and do all that work. So all that work used to be done by Student Council. And at that time, there weren't these many clubs, but when the number of clubs started going up, the number of events started going up, they needed more help. So we brought in the bookkeeper.
Yeah, just for the audit process, like my team is looking right now, like at the purchase orders, it's an Excel with 1,500 lines. And that's up to now, and we're in November. That's just for this year. Like that was the reason the bookkeeper was really introduced.
Yeah, she's definitely important. I know a lot of folks struggle with her and her limited hours and also her limited information. We've emailed her like, hey, our budget only is different than what we thought our budget is. What's the reason? She's like, I have no clue. I'll get back to you. And I'm like, never does. So there needs to be some better.
We'll follow up on that.
Just guys, just to like give you a notice, I have access to Banner, so I can tell you your budgets in real time. If you ever need to know this at any time, because I can check your budget.
Access to that?
It's.
I know my budget is currently higher than what we started with because we got a grant, but like half of the stuff. Yeah, I mean, like our projected budget is like around 2,100 right now. Link says we have like 2,600.
Okay.
So that's like a pretty big disparity.
Yeah,
like,
I
we
will.
can charge on our accounts for other clubs because it's just mistakes.
Yeah.
I'll look into that. Thanks for letting me know. Because the thing is, Banner is used through CU Web, the portal you register on. So it's like they don't give access. It was very difficult to get access to that. It took me like a month to get access to that. So I know they don't give it to everyone. They revoke it very fast also. I'm not sure. But until then, just email me and I'll look into this for you guys.
I think just any way that we could have like, I mean, we don't need to be able to like access or change anything on just even see it.
No, it's the access thing only. I can actually show you what it looks. Can I show you what it looks?
Easy to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, along with that, it's sort of like, I mean, we start to be like, at least the clubs I'm involved in, your own records, just like I do, like my own like personal finances, you know, like I have my like checking register, but I like to check in with like the bank like what the bank statement says. So if we get some sort of like bank statement, like this is how you spend your money, like at the end. Even if it's at the end of each semester, that would be enormously helpful.
Okay.
Just so we can double check and make sure that like something wasn't accidentally put on there, or that like we're missing a fund. Especially another like difficult part with Smart Buy Plus is that if so president and treasurer both have access to Smart Buy Plus, but if they don't have an ability to see what the other person puts on there. Yeah. So like if I were to like fill out something for my club, the treasurer would have no idea, and I can communicate that to them, but it's still not like consolidated all in one area. You know, like we have to have our separate budget sheet that we put that all on, but still like that's it's nice to be able to check all the information revenues rather than just sort of relying on.
Yeah, I think it would also be great if, I know for us, because we're trying to train a treasurer right now, because our treasurer is going abroad, but this person we're training doesn't have access to Smart Buy Plus, because we can only have 2 people on. So even if the way that, like, even if we can get more people on Smart Buy Plus, or in general, like, each club has their own username and password, that way, like, whoever in the club you decide is responsible enough to, like, handle it, and, like, have access to that username and password, that way it's a little bit more flexible for all of us to do, like, that would be huge.
Cool. Thanks for that suggestion. We'll definitely look into all of those points. Yeah, did you have something to add?
Another thing as far as office hours to push for her to have more is that in paying vendors, like you have to like once I fill out like the purchase order and then it's approved, and then I get the invoices, and then I have to like go through the vendor and like it also delays the ability to pay the vendors, which can then incur more fees onto the club and everything. It just like it's hard to kind of get in there, especially like I just think more officers would be very important.
Okay, that's something we'll definitely look into. Like whatever changes we make will get into effect in the next year. But now that like we know that everyone wants it to get done, we'll do it. Yeah.
Also, I know that reimbursements used to happen at the offices in Brooklyn, and now you want to go to Thurston.
Yeah.
So that's another added job to her. So it's like not only now is she doing it, but she's also giving money away, and like that's another thing, and that's also really limiting because the student can only go receive their money. Besides the fact that it takes an insane amount of time to get reimbursed, they have to now go to these 2 days and like how many times within these 2 days, which is very limiting compared to having the offices which aren't open like 8 to 5 every day.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I understand that is a big challenge. Yeah. And do you remember when this was switched from Woodland Street to Kirsten?
This semester.
This semester?
As far as I recall last year.
Still go to Woodland.
Okay.
Like otherwise your club should always be going to Kristen unless you guys like property. Because the cashier's office hasn't dealt with SLP clubs for the past like 3 years.
Okay.
That will change during my year.
All right, thanks. We'll look into that too. Maybe a short-term solution would be reopening the accounts thing, allowing people to go to accounts for investments. Yeah. Great. Also, one more thing. Please fill out your direct deposits forms. That's just like a very small suggestion I'll give you. So you can get money directly. It's a new system that CLARKIES started from this year. You can get money directly deposited into your account. That reduces the reimbursement time significantly because trust me, I've had to put in reimbursements for lots of people, and those who were on direct deposits got them way faster than the others. Most of the others haven't come yet, actually. So, yeah.
In a way, I haven't really sought information, but just the things like that. Just having maybe some repository we could know about all these systems that are in place, like direct deposit. I didn't know that you could do direct deposit in person.
Totally. We'll make a guide, like a resource guide or something, out of all the conversations we've had, and we'll check on most of my things. Great. Let's have any other questions, any points, anything else? Do you have anything to say? Anything else?
Sign-in sheet, just sign in if you did.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, this is our contact information. So for a quick thing, everything budgets related, audit related goes to Andreas because he's a finance committee chair, Anything grants related goes to every proposal to check the grants committee. Programming co-sponsorship funds or PCF goes to annually, which is the student life committee. As we discussed earlier, getting a PCF is very easy as well to getting a grant because it isn't voted on by student council. So it's a much quicker process in those. But grants is still the main source of money. Grants are $76,000 in total, and PCF has $15,000 total. And only for on-campus events, PCF. And I am the treasurer. If you have any broader questions related to the policy, or if you need help with budgeting for your club, or if there's an event that you want to put on and you feel you don't have enough money for that, you can get in touch with me. I can help you navigate through several resources and departments and stuff like that. So that's something we're actively helping clubs with that this year.
Thank you guys. Coming out.
I really should say, I think, just as a side note, it's so awesome that you all came. Like, we were really not sure how many people to expect. Like, you were really very engaged. And I can see from the finance side, we always have we feel we have kind of trouble transporting what are our motives, what are our boundaries in which we can operate. And I felt it was very good having you all here, explaining it on the one side to you, but on the other side, for example, on the bookkeeper, we had it as an idea, but didn't knew how necessary it actually was. And I think there was a pretty much consensus here, which really helps us and to do now actual policy implications. So
yeah, we'll definitely be in touch, guys. Each time you have a suggestion or a question, just shoot us an email. We have a policy of replying within 48 hours. Sometimes we do miss emails. I know I missed a lot of emails last week, I would say, but we'll get back to you and we will work on that because we can only help you if we know what is good. We were looking at that two-semester model, but after today we know that that's a priority for us. The priority is increasing the number of grants. So it's very important for us to know what you need and if you could be giving us suggestions, we'll send out feedback forms and stuff. And basically that's it. So yeah.
When are the mid-semester applications?
They're going to be done in February. Yeah. So it's because school starts a week later this year. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. And audits going to receive the emails by today or tomorrow, and then in December we're going to contact you if you're all clear, or you can fill out a survey for us. Okay.
So if anyone has any last comments, suggestions, concerns, you want to ask someone? Okay.
Good job, guys.
All right, great. I'll stop there. And everyone on live stream, thanks for joining us.